Oh, she hasn't seen me leave. That's what he was at. I wasn't sitting by her, I was sitting by her.
Do you want to get started on the public hearing part of it?
Probably, yes.
Don will continue to try to get
let's-
Jenny here.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, you can't establish an agenda, but we can hold the public hearing.
great.
We're gonna go through, some of the outline of why we're doing another public hearing for Second Street. So, in September of 2022, which was over a year ago, we held a public hearing. We did our due diligence as a city, and we told property owners about the assessments that were gonna come. Because a year has lapsed, because of that resolution, we only had a year to do it. So we're having another public hearing. We're gonna give you some updates on kind of where we're at, and we'll talk about the estimates, the preliminary estimates for the property owners. So I can tell you that we have made considerable progress on Second Street. Just last month, the rest of the MPCA permits were approved. All the properties on Hennepin that needed to be purchased and inspected have finally occurred. So we do have property, obviously those 3 homes at the end of Second Street on Hennepin are gonna be taken down for the utility easement. And so those have now all been purchased. The families that were needing to vacate have vacated. And so that was, I will tell you that held this process up probably more than anything, even more than the permitting. It was the property. So we'll get started here, and if we can't vote on it now, we'll vote on it on the December 27th meeting. So the project in scope is the same as it was last year. It's a new utility corridor. It's basically going from North Brown Street, obviously, all the way to County Ditch 42. This is a full utility redo, so storm, sewer, bituminous ground, all of it gets redone. Currently, our existing sanitary sewer from Brown Street to Nicollet Street is clay pipe, and it flows underneath the railroad tracks. And so part of the project was started because we were trying to avoid going under railroad tracks. It is pretty much an act of Congress to go underneath train tracks and to stop them from using them for the amount of time that we need to construct. So in 2015, the city had underneath this street televised. The defects were observed that they had offset joints, pipe sagging, deposits, and retreating traps. The ones that go underneath the tracks were built in 1958, and they're over 60 years old. East of Nicollet Street, that flows to South Street right now. It consists of a 10-inch and a 15-inch verified clay pipe. It was constructed in 1916, and it is over 100 years old. It is our oldest piping in Winthrop. All the manholes that we inspected on this project are all brick and mortar. We went through a lot of this last year, but obviously this is going to fix a lot of I&I problems down the corridor in 3 different locations. Those areas that were flooding currently are much less likely to actually flood again. So we're taking care of a lot of those infiltration problems. Existing water main, so Brown Street to Nicollet Street and Main Street to Carver Street has a 6-inch cast iron pipe. It's unknown age, but likely it's similar to the sanitary sewer. Its 6-inch mains are minimum, are required for fire protection by current standards, but 8-inch mains are typically installed due to minimum residential pressure requirements. Existing storm sewer from Brown Street to Redwood Street. It's a 12-inch main. It flows beneath the railroad tracks. Again, something we want to try to avoid. Tour City Ponds, known flooding issues in that area, heavily known issues. Redwood Street to Carver Street, it's a 12-inch, it flows beneath the railroad tracks again at Renville and Main Street crossings. You know, obviously, that also has flooding issues. Carver Street to Henneman Street, flows south of First Street, and then uses the county road ditch currently. Capacity is less than a 2-year storm or 2.8 inches, and the 10-year storm event, which is usually 4.14 inches, is typical standards for new systems. And that's what we'd be constructing with this. Existing streets, as we kind of covered last year, you know, a lot of the streets are not necessarily the problem. Most of the streets are in good condition. I would say some of the sidewalks obviously are not in good condition. A lot of the entryways into businesses and sidewalk crossings right now are not ADA. So our proposed improvements are sanitary sewer, our water main reconstruction and add additional looping, storm sewer reconstruction, rerouting, subsurface draining construction, and street reconstruction and downtown streetscaping. These have pretty much already been addressed, but our environmental review was done, the formal process, and MPCA's okayed it. Property and easement acquisition, so we're currently, like I said, we acquired some properties, but we do have some easements out there. We went with some residents last week and actually just today with Brian, and those easements are, we're carrying them as quickly as we can. They were sent out about a week or two ago. And most of the easements are on sidewalks, so if your property line is inside the sidewalk construction area, we need an easement in order to take it up and fix it. So that's where most of the easements are coming into play. The other issue that we talked about last year, I think at this public hearing a year ago, was the state highway. So when State Highway 19 is replaced and they connect to our system, if we're not ready for them to connect, we're gonna have to redo considerable amounts of work in order to connect with them. And obviously, because if we're ready for them and they can connect to us, we'll save a lot of money in the long run. There are considerations and alternatives. Every time we put one of these plans together with ISG, we obviously ask them for any alternatives or other considerations that we should be taking. The other alternative is to do nothing. We could continue to rely on a 100-year-old system. We continue to have reliance on damaged railroad crossings. Defective and observed in the systems would remain and likely worsen. I would continue to enter the system. And if you know anything about MPCA right now and their regulations, I is one of their top 10 things to fix. Additional depth would not be available for future upstream improvements, and the city would not be positioned to replace Highway 19 sewer system in 2028 when the highway is scheduled to go through. And the city would not be prepared to accommodate potential DFA expansion plans. Our water main, again, the material and age suggests it is near end of life, and the function of valves and curb stops may be concerning during emergency or routine maintenance activities. Storm sewer remains undersized by design current standards. I think we can see that by the flooding, obviously not last year, but in previous years. Continued drainage issues at Nicollet and Brown and Redwood Streets. Railroad crossing would remain, and the demand on the system south of the tracks would not be reduced. The city would not be prepared to accommodate potential DFA expansions. And then the streets, in general, the existing streets are in fair to good condition. Excavating for utility improvements will require a full reconstruction. Some pedestrian ramps would remain out of compliance with ADA requirements if we continue to use them. We could rehabilitate it, so this is another alternative. For segs in the sanitary sewer, we could basically go in and fix them. Other considerations are we could do nothing. Water main, sewers, storm sewers, and streets again. We could just do nothing. That is a an alternative. The full project scope, right now, and again, this is going out to bid. Construction cost is about 3.5 million, total projected costs is about 4.5, and our total city costs are projected at 3.3. This is just a portion, so some of this has actually already been completed, but our cost participation with the county, if you don't remember last year, about a year ago, the state authorized Second Street to be considered a county state aid highway, and that gave us additional funding. Their projected cost participation is 26.6% of the entire project, or 1.22 million. And again, that has already been designated. The total assessed amounts, which is in your packets, is again 25% of the street costs. It does not include any of the costs for sewer, or storm sewer, or water. It's 25% of the bituminous ground, or the actual road. That accounts for the total cost of about 13.7% of the total project. You might ask, how are those utilities then paid for? They're paid for by our enterprise funds, by water, sewer, and electric. Assessed to properties and adjacents to improvements, so anyone that is on that corridor that's getting fixed would receive assessments as you have in the mail. Amounts are obviously going to change depending on the construction bid process. Individual assessments calculated on a unit basis, so a while ago when the city set their assessment policy, we don't do by footage, we do by parcel. And so if you have a longer or shorter area in front of your building or home, this doesn't really take that into account. It's really by parcel ID. We do have some units, just to name one, Hans is kind of an outlier. They have a tiny little door that sticks out onto Second Street. That would be a 0.5 unit. So if you see some of those half units in there, those are the units that we've included. Again, this isn't totally true. Obviously, assessments are not going to appear on your 2024 property taxes. The terms and interest rates are going to be adjustable. When we checked them last year, the interest rates were 4.4%. You can't see this, but it's actually in your packet as well. We had some combinations of parcels, and we also have some new owners of property, so we are including both estimates. So this is the first estimate. This is the estimate without county participation. This is also an estimate without going out for bids. What we're proposing is that it would be a $14,205 full parcel assessment to each property, which includes some of the combinations. So that went up from last time, and that was due to some parcels getting combined. That total assessment value is $617,922, again estimated. So if council decided to put some of the county participation costs in, this would be the full amount in. Then a full share goes to $47.48, and that would be for each parcel. So the total parcel billed out then would be $206,537, so $206,000 versus the original $617. So that kind of gives you an overview of the project. A lot has not really changed from last year. We just had to have that hearing because obviously some of the assessments are going to change. Some of the scope of work is basically the exact same as it was last year. Julie, if you want to call the meeting officially to order, we've already done the public hearing, so I think we can skip that, but hear public comment.
Yes.
And then after that, we can pass the resolution to go out for bids if council wishes.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order. Do we, yeah, we can approve the agenda.
Yep.
Someone like to make a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. We'll open the public hearing. So, if you would like to, make public comment, please, take turns, come forward, have a seat, tell us your name and your address and what your comments are.
I'm representing E&M Pharmacy Services at 112 East Second Street. First off, I just want to make sure that you received the letter that I dropped off at the city office. I just want you to consider this my written objection to our preliminary assessment. Obviously, that value has gone up from our first letter. Originally it was the 13,700 approximately, and now it's the 14,200. According to the state of Minnesota, a special assessment cannot exceed the amount by which the property benefits from the improvement, and the amount the property benefits from improvement is called the special benefit. And the benefit is measured by the difference between what a willing buyer would pay a willing seller for the property before and after the improvement, based on the highest and best use of the land. If the special assessment does not meet these requirements, it's considered an unconstitutional taking. Right now, the way that the assessment is set up, it's 25% of the cost of the payment. This is without county participation. And you've divided it equally between parcel IDs. I don't know how that correlates with the actual increase in market value of the property. I have a narrow property on Second Street, and the way that it's been figured is that we all have the same special benefit. If you consider that that's what our assessments are gonna be, if they're all equal, then we all have the same special benefit. And I just don't understand how that could be justified if there's properties that are 2 to 3 times the linear frontage of my business. My business is currently ADA accessible. Having working sewer and a sidewalk and pavement, those are all there right now. So yes, you're replacing them, but I don't understand how the correlation between paying for the pavement equates to the increase in market value of our property. I know other cities have done the equal division of parcel with using the parcel IDs, but usually that's done in residential communities where you have a development and the lot sizes and the properties are very similar. On Second Street, there is a wide range of lot sizes and property frontages, so I don't know if that is necessarily the best way to come up with the special benefit for each property. So we are asking that you reconsider the amount of our special assessment before it's finalized. And again, that's looking at using the special assessment without the county participation. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
And I just wanted to point out that as a council, during most public comment, we don't return comments because we don't always have the information we need to make a good response. So if we're not actively interacting with your comments, that's why. It's not that we're not interested. I'm taking a lot of notes. So just because we don't have an active conversation back and forth with you, it doesn't mean that we're not paying attention or interested in everything you have to say. Who's next?
Wanda, did you?
I just signed in. because
That's
I
okay.
thought it was supposed
Ellen, was she?
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
No, it's
I'm-
okay.
I'm also owner of the same property.
Did you want to say anything else? We also have the engineer here. Brian is here, so if you guys have engineering type questions about the project or about easements or about how long it's gonna take or anything that engineers would speak to, he's absolutely here to answer any questions as best he can.
Yep, and maybe just to speak to the last statement, so tonight is just the improvement hearing, this isn't, we're not setting, if the city decides to move forward, this isn't setting those assessment values That would come later at the final assessment hearing. So basically, this is just an estimate of what those assessments might be. Once the project, when and if, I guess, the project is bid, those bid prices will be reflected then in the final assessment rule. So if we get good bids and the project comes in lower than what the current estimate is, then those final assessments would reflect those better bid prices too. So hopefully these are very conservative estimates at this point.
Good to know. Anybody else? Come on up.
I forgot your last name.
Gunther. Douglas Gunther. I just retired from DFA. The question is, DFA said they're gonna expand. I guess the rumor in town is they're not gonna expand, that got canceled. Have anybody talked to DFA in the last year?
2 weeks ago, we were with their corporate engineers. Yep.
Oh, and they say they're gonna expand?
Not tomorrow, but yep, they plan to expand.
Okay. I guess that's not what I hear around town, so. Okay, I just want, and I live in 19 so then 228 is when they're gonna redo that road in the middle of town then?
That's when it's scheduled, with
Okay.
anything that could get pushed off, but yeah, 2028 is the scheduled, time that MinDOT would do Highway 19.
Okay. That's all I got, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I guess one of the questions that we are getting a lot when we're signing easement agreements is which way the construction will begin. So construction will start at the ditch and work its way towards Gibbon, towards the west. I'm sure really engineering terms would be because they need depth, right? They need to start at the lowest point and work their way up. Each block is obviously gonna be different when it comes to construction considerations. We know that we have a clinic, we have a dental office, we have a post office that are gonna require some really tough choices when it comes to access to buildings. We're working with that. It will really be helpful once we go out to bid and get a construction company and get their ideas about how they're going to construct and how they're going to get access to the buildings. It's in our contract with them that they have to have access to all those buildings. So when we talk to Alina, for instance, they're not open all the time, but some of the days that the radiology department's open, that's gonna be a huge cause for concern. You can't have the building shaking, and so they're really working to figure out how they can actually take patients to New Ulm and get their x-rays and stuff done at no cost to the patient. They would bring them from here to there and then back again. So we are working with that, but obviously it's gonna depend on the construction crew. I just know that that's been a question a lot. We are requiring that the construction company access to homes and businesses that they have around the clock access to them, so. Any other?
Have there been any changes or anything with, the design plans as far as what it's gonna look like?
No, as far as the sidewalks and plants and stuff. No, there has not been.
That's the other thing I hear lots of questions about.
Sure.
Or comments.
Anybody
I
else?
guess I do have a question.
Yeah.
What determines whether we're gonna use the county participation or not use the county participation?
That will be up to council. So that is passed by council with a resolution.
Was it the whole point of making it a county road to use those county funds?
We are to the tune of like 1 million already to reconstruct sewer, water, and storm. So we're already using those funds.
But
This
there's
is,
additional available if you.
yeah, there's an additional cost participation funding that council would have to decide what's appropriate, what's not. That would be up to them to make that choice. They could even, decide to put half in, or 10% in, or 75, it'd be completely up to them.
So is your page, the back of this page, is that if they're using all of it?
Yes, that is when they use all of it. I think they're referring to this guy. Not that that really helps,
Just to,
it's really small.
I have a question about that. We get a set amount of dollars from the county for the project. We're not gonna get more from the county if we allocate it differently.
And what will
That's-
eventually happen is that, $400,000 that we're taking off, that'll get rolled into our bond so that the rest of the public will be paying for the offset.
Okay.
Generally, it goes to the overall costs that the city pays.
Right,
So the 75% of the bituminous ground that goes through from, the north to the south, or east to the west, I guess, that would be taken away from that, so we would have to bond a little bit more.
okay. Megan?
It was my understanding on the project that how the county calculated how much they were gonna pay was based on the pavement, and not the sewer and the stuff, because I thought that was unrelated to the county, and maybe you can clarify that, but was it specifically just like the pavement that they were, when we considered how much they were gonna put in, that they didn't consider the sewer and the utilities underneath?
The sanitary sewer, no, it's basically how it's calculated for the county participation, the city county has a policy. And I don't remember the exact fractions, but, essentially all the payments paid for, I think they pay 50% of the sidewalks. They do pay a portion of the storm sewer, and that's, I think that is a little over, I think it's 55% if I recall
I
correctly.
think that's right.
So the only sewer that is included with the county participation is storm sewer. Yeah.
But primarily pavement and sidewalk, right?
Pavement sidewalk, yes, they do, and curb and gutter, yes, yep.
Thanks, Matt.
My question, so you haven't even decided for sure, how do you, if interest went from what did you say, it was 4.3?
I believe it was 4.4 when we went out to
So
bid.
what happens if it's 7 or 8? How does that change the project cost?
I doubt for our bond, it would go up that much. But that is something that our financial advisor would have to advise us on. Generally, bonds right now for cities are under 5%.
Big number on millions of dollars.
It's a huge number, millions of dollars.
So I'm sorry, I missed he asked a question, and I guess I didn't get the answer right. So if it jumps up to 5, 6, 7%, would you cancel a project?
That would be up to council.
Okay,
I doubt that they would cancel this project. This is part of the comprehensive study that they did in 2018. This was a pretty important project all around in order to get ready for Highway 19. What he was asking about is percentage points. So generally what DDA would advise us on is that that gets rolled into the entire bond. So if the percentage points go up, they add the hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest into the bond payment, as they do with all projects.
okay, so if, let's say, for example, the project went out for bids and it came in at $12 million, that would not, because of interest and all this roll up, the council would still go with it?
I can't imagine that it would spike that much, so
Maybe $9 million.
We're just trying to find out what the limit is, because eventually you can just keep selling bonds forever and make the town a Winthrop
no,
poorer and poorer,
we actually can't.
okay?
DDA actually uses a formula that we report to the state every year. If DDA didn't find our credit worthiness and our ability to pay back the bond within our scope of work, they wouldn't let us borrow money. They wouldn't let us go out for a bond. It would never be approved.
Okay, so there's other forces that could control if this project gets done or not.
They use our audits, our enterprise funds, and a lot of other criteria, like how many funds available in our sinking fund account, how many we have in reserves, in order to determine not only our bond rating, but how much our total market value is basically what they use. So if we were heavily bonded and they didn't think that they could pay back, they wouldn't allow us to go for a bond. We would either have to use all of our reserves or wait for the project.
And the city of Winthrop has a very good credit rating,
Yes.
very high. Megan?
Can I just clarify on that one PowerPoint where it was talking about like the total project cost and then the county participation in that? Is the total cost in our letter that we received, it says that the current estimated cost is still the 7,843,000? Is that still,
Yep.
we're at the 7.8 million?
Yep.
Okay,
It's about
so that you have to
7.8.
add those numbers, the 4 million, the 1
Yes.
million, the 3 million. So
All
it's
the
not
gray
4 million
boxes.
total, it's plus add all the.
Yes, it's about $7 to $8 million.
Okay.
Without enough for bid.
And I think if I could clarify, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, tonight would be just the first step. So what we need to do is approve going out for bids to find out exactly how much a construction company says this project is going to cost. After that, when we receive the bids, then it's the council's responsibility to decide if we're going to move forward with the project. So this is basically it's a big step, but it's another step in the process. We're not saying that we're 100% doing the project right now. We're moving in that direction. Is that fair to say?
Does it get to the point where you have to take some of that beautification out? I mean, interest rate keeps going up, you're building a new house, and house costs go up. Sooner or later, you gotta say, well, I can't afford that. It might have to be basically a street, ADA accessible, maybe less flower pots and less swings, is that a possibility? I mean, if it actually or is that because that's the plan you've had to decide on? Obviously, all the bids aren't in yet, but it never seems to get any cheaper. So would you consider taking some of that out?
I'd like to see what the engineers or what the construction bids come back at, and, then I think as a council, we discuss it.
I got a question for the engineer. So, I'm Andrew Troughton from Gaylord. I'm gonna be buying on January 1st, 305 2nd Street West, the Gaylord mini storage. Do you know, is there, I wouldn't imagine, but is there sanitary sewer underneath? Is there water underneath that could be accessed down the road?
Yep, I don't have the plans in front of me, but yes, any lot we provide service to, whether there's services being used there now or not. So even if, for example, it would be no different than if there was an empty lot that there was no house on, we still provide service stuff for that. So if you're gonna purchase it and decide to put in a restroom or something like that, there would be access to the utilities. So you won't have to tear the street back up if you wanted access.
Okay.
And if you don't, then they'll just be capped. So then if you ever sell again, that person has access.
Sure. Thank you.
And if there's, I'll just add the caveat, if there's a certain place where you think you want those to go, let us know, and we can make sure that they're, if we need to move them from where they are currently on the plan, we can serve them.
Okay. So I assume there'll be the above ground shut off.
You'll have curb stop, yep, that'll be up there, right away line or close to it.
Any more questions? Got the engineer here, we might as well ask him questions if you have them. If there's no further public comment, I will close the public hearing. And we can move on the agenda. The new business item is resolution 2023-41, authorizing approval of plans and ordering advertisements for bids.
I move that we go out for approval of bids.
I'm gonna second it.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Any discussion? I would just like to say, I think this is, as I said earlier, it's just an important step in this process, and we need to move forward. We have serious sewer and water issues, and I think this is gonna be an important step for the entire city in that process. So, with that being said, I will call the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So, we go to bid. And I believe that is all that's on our agenda. So, somebody would like to move to
I'll make
adjourn?
a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
You guys make such a team. Oh, all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Have a good evening. Thank you all for coming.